Emily was a 9-year-old girl who lived with her mother in a small rented house near the edge of a quiet neighborhood. Life had never been easy for them. Her mother worked long hours at a nearby cafe, and the money they earned was just enough for rent, food, and school supplies. They did not have extra for luxuries, and certainly not for pets. Yet Emily had always loved animals. Whenever she saw a cat or dog on the street, she would stop, smile, and try to pet it. Sometimes she would sit on the steps of their house and watch stray dogs wander by, imagining what it would be like if one of them became her friend. Deep inside, she longed for a pet she could call her own, someone who would love her unconditionally and never leave her side. One bright afternoon, after finishing her homework, Emily asked her mother if she could walk to the small local market just 2 blocks away. Her mother agreed, reminding her to come back before dinner. Emily happily skipped down the street with a few coins in her pocket. She had been saving those coins for weeks, planning to buy a small chocolate bar, or maybe some colorful marbles she had seen at one of the stalls. As she entered the crowded market, her eyes sparkled at the rows of vendors selling fruits, toys, and secondhand items. She was walking past the vegetable stall when she suddenly noticed a small group of people gathered around a man standing near the corner. His voice was loud, and there was a strange mixture of frustration and urgency in his tone. Out of curiosity, Emily squeezed through the crowd to see what was happening. What she saw made her heart skip a beat. Beside the man lay a large German shepherd, its fur dirty and its body weak. The dog's eyes looked tired, and one of its legs seemed to be hurt. The man shouted, "$5. Just $5, and the dog is yours. I don't care who takes it. I don't need it anymore." The adults standing around shook their heads. Some laughed under their breath. One woman whispered, "Who would pay for that? It's just a broken dog." Another man muttered, "It won't survive. Better leave it." They began walking away one by one, uninterested in the animal. Emily stood still, staring at the German shepherd. Despite its injuries, the dog's eyes met hers, and in that moment she felt something powerful, like a silent conversation between them. It was as if the dog was asking her for help, trusting her even though they had never met. Her small hands tightened around the few coins in her pocket. She had exactly $5, the same amount the man was asking for. Her heart began to race. She had been saving that money for something sweet, but now the thought of chocolate seemed meaningless compared to the chance to save this helpless creature. The man grew impatient. "Anyone, just $5. Take it, or I'll have to leave it somewhere else." He tugged the leash, and the dog let out a faint whimper. Without thinking further, Emily stepped forward. Her voice was small but steady. "I'll take him." The crowd turned to look at her. Some chuckled at the sight of a little girl offering to buy a large injured dog. One man laughed. "Child, you don't even know what you're doing. That dog needs medicine and food. It will cost a fortune." Another shook his head. "She's wasting her money." But Emily did not care what they thought. She reached into her pocket, pulled out her carefully folded bills and coins, and handed them to the man. He raised his eyebrows in surprise, but quickly snatched the money. "Fine, he's yours now. Good luck with that." With a careless shrug, he handed her the leash and walked away. Emily bent down beside the dog. She gently touched its head, whispering softly, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you." The dog blinked slowly, as if understanding her promise. Despite his weakness, his tail moved ever so slightly, brushing the ground. Emily smiled, feeling warmth fill her chest. The people around her shook their heads, but she ignored them. Holding the leash tightly, she began the slow walk back home. The German shepherd limped beside her, leaning on her for support. It was a strange sight, a tiny girl guiding a huge but fragile dog through the busy market streets. Some passers-by pointed, some pitied her, and others simply dismissed her as foolish. But Emily held her head high. To her, this dog was not broken. He was special. When she reached her street, a few neighbors peeked from their doors and windows. Mrs. Carter, who lived next door, frowned and said, "Emily, where did you get that animal? It looks sick. You should not bring strays home." Another neighbor shook his head. "That poor thing won't last long. You'll only get hurt." Emily ignored them and gently encouraged the dog to keep moving. When she reached her little house, she opened the gate and guided him inside. Her mother, who had just returned from work, froze at the sight. "Emily, what is this?" she asked, her voice filled with worry. Emily quickly explained everything. The man at the market, the $5, and how nobody else wanted the dog. She ended with, "Please, Mama, I couldn't leave him. He needs me." I'll take care of him. I promise. Her mother sighed deeply. She looked at the dog, who was lying down on the small patch of grass, his eyes tired but gentle. For a moment she wanted to scold Emily for spending the money and bringing such responsibility home. But then she saw the determination in her daughter's eyes and the way the dog looked at her, as though already loyal to her. Something in her heart softened. "Emily," she said quietly, "we don't have much money. Taking care of a dog is not easy. He will need food, maybe medicine too." "I know, Mama," Emily replied firmly. "I'll help. I can use my allowance. I'll find a way. Please don't make me send him away." Her mother hesitated, then finally nodded. "All right. We will try. But you must understand this is a big responsibility." Emily threw her arms around her mother and whispered, "Thank you, Mama. You won't regret it." She then hurried to the dog, kneeling beside him. "Your name is Max," she whispered, stroking his fur gently. The dog licked her hand weakly, sealing the bond between them. That night, Emily gave Max some water and small pieces of bread dipped in warm milk. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. She placed an old blanket on the floor near her bed and encouraged him to rest there. Max slowly curled up on the blanket, his body trembling slightly but his eyes fixed on Emily. As she lay in bed, Emily whispered to herself, $5, just $5, and I found a friend." She closed her eyes with a smile, unaware of how this single act of kindness would soon change her life forever. The neighbors could whisper, the strangers could laugh, but Emily didn't care. She had given all she had for the one who needed her most. And as Max drifted into sleep beside her bed, the faint wag of his tail promised that he too had found something priceless, someone who truly cared. The next morning, Emily woke up earlier than usual. The first thing she saw was Max lying on the old blanket near her bed. His breathing was slow but steady. For a moment she wondered if he was still asleep, but when she whispered his name, one ear twitched and his tired eyes opened. He gave a soft wag of his tail, and Emily's heart filled with warmth. She knelt down, stroking his fur gently. "Good morning, Max," she whispered. Her mother entered the room holding a small bowl of porridge. She looked at the dog with concern but also with softness in her eyes. "He needs strength," she said. "We'll share some food with him, but Emily, remember we cannot afford expensive things. We must do what we can with what we have." Emily nodded eagerly. She took the bowl, let it cool a little, and carefully fed Max small spoonfuls. At first he hesitated, but soon he began to eat slowly, as though trusting that the food would not harm him. Emily clapped her hands with joy. "See, Mama. He's eating. He will get better." Over the next few days, Emily gave almost all her free time to Max. She brushed his fur with an old hairbrush, cleaned the dirt from his paws with warm water, and even found an empty box to use as his little corner bed. She offered him small pieces of bread, rice, and sometimes broth when her mother could spare it. Emily even gave up buying small treats for herself so she could save her allowance to buy dog biscuits from the shop. But it wasn't easy. Max was weak. He limped heavily on one leg, and sometimes he winced in pain. When neighbors saw him in the yard, they shook their heads. Mrs. Carter, their next-door neighbor, leaned over the fence one morning and said, "Emily, child, that dog will not make it. He looks broken. It is cruel to keep him alive like that." Another man added, "You're wasting your time, girl. He won't protect you. He's useless." Emily's small face flushed with hurt, but she held her head high. "He's not useless," she said firmly. "He just needs love, and I'll give it to him." Max, though weak, wagged his tail as if agreeing with her words. School was another challenge. When Emily walked to school, Max tried to follow her, limping along the street. At first she worried he might get too tired, but he refused to stay behind. He would wait for her near the gate, lying on the grass until classes were over. Some children laughed at the sight of the big injured dog waiting for such a small girl. They teased her, saying, "Why don't you get a real dog? That one looks like a ragged old carpet." Others warned her that he might be dangerous. But Emily never let their words break her spirit. After school, she would run to Max, hug his neck, and whisper, "Don't listen to them. You're mine and I'm yours." Max always seemed to understand, licking her cheek gently and walking beside her all the way home. Her mother, though worried, couldn't help but notice how much happier Emily had become since Max arrived. Emily laughed more, spent her time caring for him, and showed a level of responsibility far beyond her years. Sometimes late at night, Her mother would peek into Emily's room and see her daughter sleeping peacefully with one hand resting on Max's back. It gave her mother comfort, knowing her child had found such loyalty and love. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Emily sat in the yard brushing Max's fur. She spoke to him softly, as if he were a person who could reply. "I know people don't believe in you, Max," she said, "but I do. I believe you can get strong again. And one day they'll all see." Max looked at her with eyes full of trust, his tail thumping slowly against the ground. Over the next weeks, the bond between Emily and Max grew deeper. She would take him on short walks, careful not to let him strain his injured leg. Sometimes they sat by the small pond near the neighborhood, watching ducks swim across the water. Emily told him stories about her dreams, how she wanted to become a teacher, how she wished to travel the world, and how she had always wanted a best friend who would never leave her side. In return, Max offered silent companionship, always staying close, his presence giving her comfort and courage. Slowly, Max's condition began to improve. With rest, food, and Emily's care, his fur became shinier and his eyes brighter. He still limped, but he moved with more strength than before. The neighbors who once mocked Emily started to notice the change. One afternoon, Mrs. Carter admitted quietly, "Well, he does look a bit better now. Maybe you're doing something right after all." But not everyone was supportive. Some people still muttered that the dog would never be normal again, and others worried he might cause trouble. Emily ignored their doubts. She knew what she saw every day, the spark of life returning to Max's eyes, the way he wagged his tail when she came home, the way he tried to protect her even in his weak state. One day, while Emily was playing outside, a stray dog approached her, barking loudly. Emily froze for a moment, but before she could move, Max dragged himself forward, placing his body between her and the barking stray. Though still limping, he let out a deep growl that made the other dog retreat. Emily gasped, then hugged him tightly. "You're my hero, Max," she whispered, tears shining in her eyes. Her mother, who had been watching from the doorway, felt her heart swell with pride. She realized then that Max was no ordinary dog, and Emily's love had brought out something strong and loyal in him. The bond between them grew so obvious that even the local shopkeeper noticed. When Emily went to buy dog biscuits, the shopkeeper smiled and said, "That dog of yours, he's got spirit. I've seen the way he follows you." $5, eh? That's the best deal you ever made." Emily beamed with pride. She no longer cared what others said. She and Max were a team, and nothing could break them apart. Every night before sleeping, Emily whispered the same words to Max. "We'll show them, Max. You're not broken. You're special. One day everyone will see what I see." Max would close his eyes beside her bed, his body relaxed, his tail tapping softly on the blanket as if promising her he would never let her down. And though neither of them knew it yet, the world was about to find out just how special Max really was. For hidden deep inside him was a past and a talent that would soon shock everyone who had ever doubted him. Weeks turned into months, and Emily's life became brighter with Max by her side. Every day after school, she hurried home to be with him. They walked around the neighborhood together, sometimes sitting under the big oak tree where Emily read stories aloud. Max listened quietly, his ears twitching at the sound of her voice. He was no longer the weak, hopeless dog people had seen at the market. His fur shone with a healthy glow, his body was stronger, and though he still limped, he carried himself with pride. One Saturday afternoon, Emily and her mother took Max to the park. The sun was shining, children were playing, and families enjoyed their picnics. Emily tossed a small ball for Max, expecting him to chase it slowly. To her surprise, Max darted after it with surprising speed despite his injured leg. He caught it in his mouth and ran back to her, tail wagging. People nearby turned their heads, impressed by the big dog's energy. That was when an older man sitting on a bench noticed Max. He was a retired police officer named Mr. Thompson, who often visited the park to feed the pigeons. His eyes narrowed as he studied Max's movements carefully. When Emily threw the ball again, Max didn't just chase it. He zigzagged like he was trained to avoid obstacles. When a stranger walked too close to Emily, Max positioned himself in front of her, his body alert, his eyes watchful. Mr. Thompson slowly stood and approached Emily and her mother. "Excuse me," he said politely, pointing at Max. "Where did you get that dog?" Emily proudly explained. "I bought him for $5 from a man in the market. He was hurt and nobody wanted him, so I took him home. The officer crouched slightly, studying Max. "This is no ordinary dog," he said firmly. "Look at the way he moves, the way he watches over you. He has been trained." Emily tilted her head, confused. "Trained? You mean like tricks?" Mr. Thompson shook his head. "No, not tricks. That dog shows signs of being a canine, police trained. Watch this." He picked up a stick and tossed it, not far but at an angle. Max ran after it but didn't just grab it. He circled around, scanned the ground, then returned with the stick in a disciplined manner. Emily clapped in delight. "See, Mama? I told you Max is special." Her mother, however, looked concerned. "Are you sure?" she asked the officer. "I am certain," Mr. Thompson replied. "I worked with dogs like him for years. Only trained service dogs act this way. And look." He gently pointed at Max's ear. There, hidden under his fur, was a faint tattoo, numbers and letters that identified him as a registered service dog. Emily's eyes widened in shock. She knelt beside Max, whispering, "You were a hero before, weren't you?" Max licked her cheek as if answering yes. The officer sighed. "If he has a tattoo, he once belonged to a police unit. But if you found him abandoned, it means something must have happened. Maybe he got lost during duty, or perhaps he was retired early. Either way, he's not just a pet. He's a warrior." Word spread quickly. The park visitors who saw the moment began whispering to each other. By evening, neighbors were already talking. Emily's $5 dog was once a police dog. The next day at school, children who once laughed at Emily now surrounded her. "Is it true, Emily? Is Max a real police dog?" one asked. Another said, "Show us what he can do." Emily, though shy, felt proud. She demonstrated how Max listened to simple commands like sit and stay, which he performed flawlessly. The children's laughter turned to cheers, and for the first time, they looked at Emily with admiration instead of teasing. At home, Emily's mother sat down with her to discuss what they had learned. "Emily," she said gently, "if Max belonged to the police, they may come looking for him. He may not stay with us forever." Emily's heart tightened. She hugged Max tightly. "But Mama, he chose me. Nobody wanted him. I gave him a home. He's mine now." Her mother stroked her hair, feeling torn. She knew her daughter's love was pure, but she also knew that Max had a past connected to something bigger. A week later, their fears came true. A local newspaper had picked up the story from someone in the park. The headline read, "Little Girl Rescues Abandoned Police Dog for $5." Alongside was a photo of Emily hugging Max. The article praised her kindness and described Max's tattoo, hinting that he was once part of a K-9 unit. The story spread beyond their small town. Soon, officers from the nearby city police department visited Emily's house. They were curious to see Max for themselves. When they arrived, Max immediately grew alert, recognizing the uniforms. He stood tall, ears perked, as if ready for duty. One officer knelt and called out a command in a firm voice, "Search!" To everyone's shock, Max obeyed instantly, sniffing around the yard like he was on patrol. Emily watched in awe, but fear tugged at her heart. She whispered, "What if they take him away from me?" The officers confirmed that Max had once served as part of their K-9 team. He had been injured during a dangerous mission and went missing afterward. They had searched for him but never found him. They were surprised and grateful that Emily had saved him. Still, there was tension. "Technically, he belongs to the department," one officer explained. "But he is weak and we thought we had lost him forever. It is unusual to leave him in a civilian home." Emily's eyes filled with tears. She hugged Max tightly, burying her face in his fur. "Please don't take him. He's my best friend. I gave him love when no one else would. He belongs with me now." Her mother's eyes glistened, watching her daughter's courage. She turned to the officers. "This dog was thrown away for $5. My daughter gave him a second chance." You can see how much they need each other. The officers looked at Max, who stood protectively in front of Emily, as if declaring his choice. After a long pause, one of them sighed. "We'll have to discuss this with the department, but it's clear he has already chosen his new family." That evening, Emily sat with Max under the stars. She stroked his fur and whispered, "No matter what happens, I will fight for you. You're not just a police dog, you're my Max, and we'll face everything together." Max leaned against her, eyes calm as if promising he would never leave her side. The discovery of Max's true past had changed everything. Emily's world, once filled with whispers of doubt and laughter from others, was now filled with curiosity and respect. But along with the pride came a new challenge. The police knew who Max was. The world now knew his story, and Emily would soon have to prove that her love was strong enough to hold on to him, no matter what stood in her way. After the police officer's visit, life at Emily's house changed in ways she could never have imagined. The story of Max, the once abandoned German shepherd, had spread across the neighborhood and even reached the city. Everyone now knew about the little girl who had spent $5 to save a dog that was actually a highly trained K9. People who had once whispered and laughed at Emily now watched her with quiet admiration. Some neighbors came by just to see Max, amazed at how strong and loyal he had become. Emily, however, did not let the attention distract her. She spent her days caring for Max as she always had. She brushed his fur, fed him carefully, and helped him walk when his injured leg ached. She even created small obstacle courses in their yard so Max could exercise without hurting himself. Her mother helped as much as she could, buying extra food and occasionally taking time off work to help Emily monitor Max's recovery. One afternoon, a phone call arrived from the police department. Emily's mother answered hesitantly. The voice on the line was calm but serious. "Hello, ma'am. We are calling about Max, the German shepherd. We would like to visit your home and discuss his future. We have reviewed his records, and he is officially a retired service dog. We want to ensure he is placed appropriately." Emily overheard part of the conversation. Her stomach tightened. She ran to her mother and said, "Mama, please don't let them take him. He's my best friend. I can take care of him. I'll do anything." Her mother held her close. "I know, Emily, but we have to listen. They are his former owners. We just have to see what they say. It doesn't mean they will take him away." The next day, a team of police officers arrived at their small home. Emily and her mother greeted them nervously. Max, sensing the visitors, stood tall and alert, but he did not bark. He stayed close to Emily, his eyes scanning each officer carefully. It was clear that he was ready to defend her if needed, even though he had been trained to follow commands. One of the officers, a kind-looking man with silver hair, spoke first. "Emily, we know you saved Max when he was abandoned. You gave him love and care when no one else would. That is remarkable. He has been through a lot, and it is clear you have formed a strong bond." Emily nodded, clutching Max's leash. "Yes, sir. I couldn't leave him alone. Nobody else wanted him, but I did. I love him, and he loves me." The officers exchanged glances, and one said, "We can see that. Normally, retired K9s are either placed in homes of officers or in specialized care. But seeing the way Max responds to you and the way you care for him, we think there may be another option." Emily's eyes widened. "You mean—" "I can keep him." The officer smiled. "We would like to discuss making him officially yours. Of course, there will be paperwork and some training guidelines, but you have already proven that you can care for him and that he trusts you completely." Tears of joy filled Emily's eyes. She hugged Max tightly. Max nuzzled her cheek, wagging his tail slowly but happily. He had been through so much, and now he could stay with the little girl who had saved him. Over the next few weeks, Emily worked with the officers to complete all the necessary arrangements. She learned about Max's previous training, about commands she could use, and how to care for his special needs as a retired service dog. She discovered that Max was trained not only for protection, but also for search and rescue. He had once helped find lost children and had even assisted during emergencies. Emily felt proud, but she also felt a sense of responsibility. Max was more than a pet. He was a hero. As the story of Emily and Max spread further, local newspapers and television stations came to interview them. Children at school who had once teased Emily now gathered around, asking to meet Max. They watched in amazement as Max performed simple commands, such as sitting, staying, and retrieving objects, showing the precision of his training. Emily smiled shyly but felt proud. She had not only rescued Max, but had given him a second chance to live happily. Despite all the attention, Emily never let Max's fame change their daily routine. Every morning she fed him, cleaned his paws, and walked him through the neighborhood. She still took him to the park, where he became a favorite among children, many of whom had never seen a trained K9 before. Max was gentle with everyone, but he always stayed close to Emily. His loyalty had never wavered. Her mother watched all of this with pride. She often thought about the moment Emily had first given Max $5 and how that single act had led to so much. She realized that love and kindness could change lives, not just for humans but for animals as well. Emily had shown courage and determination, and Max had responded with trust and loyalty. One day, the police department called again. They invited Emily and Max to a small ceremony at the station. Emily's mother accompanied her, and Max walked proudly beside her. The chief officer presented Emily with a certificate recognizing her as Max's official guardian. "Emily," he said, "you have shown what it means to care for a living being without expecting anything in return. You have saved a hero, and in return, Max has become your friend for life. This certificate confirms that Max officially belongs to you." Emily beamed, tears shining in her eyes. Max leaned against her, resting his head on her lap. The crowd applauded, and Emily felt a wave of happiness she had never experienced before. People who had once doubted her now admired her courage, and Max had finally received the recognition he deserved. Returning home, Emily and her mother noticed the neighbors watching from their windows and porches. Some waved, some smiled, and a few even clapped when they saw Max wagging his tail proudly. The girl who had once been laughed at for buying an abandoned dog for $5 had now become a symbol of kindness and determination in her small town. That night, Emily sat beside Max on the floor of her room, stroking his fur gently. "We did it, Max," she whispered. "We proved that love is stronger than anything else. Nobody can take you away from me. You're my friend, my hero, and my family." Max rested his head on her lap, closing his eyes in contentment. He had endured abandonment, injury, and uncertainty, but he had found his home in someone who truly cared for him. In the days that followed, Emily continued to care for Max as she always had. She still walked him through the streets, fed him carefully, and watched over him like a guardian. But now the community saw them differently. Children wanted to play with Max. Adults smiled when they saw Emily caring for him, and neighbors who had once mocked her offered small gestures of support. Emily learned something important through the experience. Kindness could change the world, even if it started with just one small action. She had spent $5 on a dog that everyone else had ignored, and in return, she had received a friend, a protector, and a hero. Max had been lost and abandoned, but he had found a family that loved him. Together they had faced challenges, proven their bond, and inspired everyone around them. Every night, Emily whispered her gratitude to Max. "Thank you for choosing me," she said softly. "Thank you for trusting me. I promise to always take care of you, and I know you will always be there for me." Max twitched his ears and wagged his tail, as if agreeing with every word. The story of the little girl and her German shepherd spread beyond their small town. Emily received letters from people praising her courage and kindness. Children sent drawings of Max, while adults wrote notes about how her actions had reminded them to be compassionate. The girl who had been laughed at for caring for a weak, injured dog had now become a symbol of hope and inspiration. And through it all, Emily never let the attention change her. She remained humble, focused on caring for Max and spending time with him every day. Max, once abandoned and injured, had found his home, and together, they shared a bond that was stronger than anyone could imagine. They had faced doubts, challenges, and fears, and they had emerged victorious, not because of fame or recognition, but because of love, loyalty, and trust. After the ceremony at the police station, Emily returned home with Max by her side, her heart full of joy and gratitude. Everything had changed, yet life also felt as ordinary as it always had. The same small house, the same yard, the same streets, but now Max was officially hers. He was no longer just the dog she had rescued for $5. He was a hero, a loyal friend, and her family. Emily could hardly believe how far they had come together. The following mornings were filled with routine and happiness. Emily would wake up, greet Max, and prepare his breakfast. She carefully cut his food into small portions to make sure he ate well. Max would wag his tail and watch her every move, his eyes full of trust and devotion. She brushed his fur until it gleamed, cleaned his paws after every walk, and sometimes massaged his injured leg to ease his discomfort. Even though he was strong now, Emily never forgot how fragile he had been when she first found him. Word about Emily and Max had spread far beyond their neighborhood. Local newspapers had followed the story, television crews had visited, and people from other towns had written letters praising Emily's courage. Some sent toys for Max, treats, and blankets. Others sent notes to Emily, telling her how her kindness had inspired them to be more compassionate toward animals and people alike. Every day, Emily would read the letters aloud to Max, telling him, "See, Max? You're not just my dog. You're a hero. And everyone loves you." Max would lie beside her, his head resting on her lap, as if listening to every word. Despite the attention and admiration, Emily remained humble. She did not care about the fame or the gifts. She cared only about Max. Every evening they walked together through the neighborhood. Children would run up to pet Max and adults would smile warmly. Some of the same neighbors who had once mocked her for spending $5 on a broken dog now nodded with respect, saying things like, "You were right, Emily, that dog was special." Emily smiled politely, but she never let the praise change her. She had only done what her heart told her was right. One day a young boy from school asked her, "Emily, are you scared Max might leave you now that he's famous?" She shook her head. "No," she replied. "He's not famous to me. He's my best friend. He stays with me because we love each other, not because anyone else says he's special." Max wagged his tail as if agreeing. Emily's mother watched all of this with pride and wonder. She often thought about the day Emily had handed over her hard-earned $5 at the market. Who would have thought that a simple act of kindness could lead to so much? She realized that the world sometimes underestimates small gestures of love. Emily had saved Max, and in doing so, she had taught everyone around her an important lesson. Courage, kindness, and compassion mattered more than money or appearances. Max continued to show his incredible instincts. Even though he was officially retired from service, his training remained sharp. One afternoon, when Emily was playing in the yard, a neighborhood dog wandered too close, growling aggressively. Max immediately positioned himself between Emily and the other dog. His body language, strong and calm, warned the stray to back off. The dog eventually retreated, leaving Emily safe. She hugged Max tightly. "You'll always protect me, won't you?" she whispered. Max licked her face softly, and she felt that promise in his eyes. As the months passed, Emily and Max's bond deepened even further. They went on small adventures together, walks through the nearby woods, trips to the park, and even visits to her school, where Max became a gentle ambassador of love and loyalty. Children loved to watch him perform simple commands, and Emily explained how he had once been a police dog, teaching them about respect, responsibility, and kindness to animals. Max never misbehaved, and his gentle temperament impressed everyone who met him. One day, Emily had an idea. She wanted to help other animals like Max, those who were abandoned, injured, or unloved. With her mother's help, she started small. She collected leftover food and blankets, and when she saw stray animals on the street, she would leave them near her yard with care. Max was always there with her, gentle and calm, making sure the smaller animals felt safe. Neighbors began to notice, and soon, Emily's efforts inspired others to help animals in the community. What had started as a small act of kindness for one dog had grown into a ripple of compassion that touched many lives. Despite the attention and admiration, Emily never forgot the lessons she had learned. She remembered the man at the market who had tried to get rid of Max for $5, the neighbors who had mocked her, and the worry she had felt when the police first arrived. All of it had shaped her courage and her belief in the power of love. And Max, once injured and abandoned, had shown that trust and loyalty could overcome fear and hardship. Evenings were their favorite time. Emily would sit on the small porch reading her favorite books while Max lay beside her. Sometimes he would nuzzle her hand, asking for a gentle pat. She would laugh softly and scratch behind his ears. Together they watched the stars appear, the quiet night wrapping around them like a warm blanket. Emily often whispered, "Thank you for choosing me, Max. Thank you for trusting me. I promise I will never let anything happen to you." Max's steady breathing and soft tail movements reassured her that he understood, that he too had found someone to trust forever. One sunny afternoon, Emily decided to revisit the market where she had first met Max. She held his leash tightly as they walked past the familiar stalls. Some of the vendors recognized her and smiled. "Is that the dog you saved?" one of them asked. Emily nodded, her heart swelling with pride. Max wagged his tail as if he knew the story that had changed both of their lives. People who had once ignored or mocked him now paused to admire him, and Emily realized how far they had come together. That day, As Emily and Max walked home, she thought about the incredible journey they had shared. She had spent $5 on a dog that everyone else had ignored, yet that small act of love had transformed their lives completely. Max had gone from being abandoned and weak to being healthy, loved, and admired. Emily had grown stronger, braver, and more compassionate, learning the true meaning of responsibility and courage. Together they had faced doubt, fear, and challenge, and together they had triumphed. At night, Emily tucked Max into his blanket and whispered softly, "We did it, Max. You're home, safe and loved. No one can ever take that away from us." Max rested his head on her lap, eyes half closed, his breathing steady and calm. Emily felt a sense of peace, knowing that their bond was unbreakable. They had found each other when the world had turned away, and now nothing could separate them. In the days that followed, life settled into a happy rhythm. Emily went to school. Max rested and played in the yard, and her mother supported them both. The story of the little girl who had saved a hero dog became a lasting lesson for the community. People often spoke about Emily's courage and kindness, using her story to teach their children about compassion, responsibility, and loyalty. Emily never sought recognition, but the love and respect she received from others only strengthened her belief in doing good, without expecting anything in return. Years later, Emily would remember that day at the market, the day she handed over $5 for an injured dog, and she would smile. That small act had brought her Max, a friend who would never leave her side. It had taught her the value of patience, trust, and unconditional love. And most importantly, it had shown her that even the smallest actions of kindness could create miracles that would last a lifetime. Emily's life had been transformed by a single choice, and Max's life had been transformed by the same choice. Together, they had created a story of hope, courage, and loyalty, a story that would be remembered in their neighborhood for years to come. The little girl who once had nothing but coins and a big heart had gained a hero, a friend, and a lifetime of happiness. And Max, the once injured German Shepherd, had found a home where he was truly loved, safe, and cherished forever. And as they sat together on the porch looking at the stars, Emily whispered softly to Max, "We did it. We are a team, and we always will be." Max wagged his tail gently, resting his head on her lap as if promising her that he would never leave her side. Their story, born from kindness and courage, had reached a perfect ending, a new beginning for both of them.